time for part 3, and also the last part of my least favorite albums in K-pop, packaging wise. And this one I thought I would start with, what should we call it, the pocket albums, the quite intricate, more complicated album packagings. For example, this one, which is 17 karat. I have heard many people say many things about this. It's usually not particularly positive, which I can understand. First of all, I have this example here with JJ's WWW. It has the same type of way to open it, which is you have to open it like this, and as you can see, this is quite unavoidable. It will get damaged up here. Same with this one. There's really no perfect way to open this. It just will always be a damage, which is unfortunate. This one is also quite special in the fact that it contains lots of cards, and this one, it is one thing to put a CD in a pocket. It is another thing to not have protection on top of the CD in the pocket. The data on the CD sits on this part, which means that if you scratch off this part, you won't be able to play the CD. If you scratch here, the underside, you can repair it if it's not too deep, but this is nothing you can restore. So the fact that they decided to not protect it at all with any sort of plastic or anything, it's a bit confusing to me, due to the fact that when you have this peak hole thingy, you usually put a thin plastic coating on top of it so that the top doesn't get scratched. So I have a hard time understanding this type of... Actually, I have a hard time understanding this packaging overall. This is thing here, and we have another thing here, which is a lot of stuff. I really do like it when they're creative, but this is a bit of a maze, to be honest. Let's put it back together again. I want to like it because it's so. How was this supposed to go? No, like that, right? I want to like it in one way, but in one way, it's just what? This is. I'm sorry, I need to put this back together. And as you might notice, I have the CD like this, because of the simple fact that I don't want to dig through all of it again, because normally the CD would be inside everything and you'll have to, yeah. Let's not do that. Since I want to listen to it, I just keep it here in the front. It looks cool, but it is so complicated that it's not so cool. There is just so much complication. We have Seon's WWW, as I said, and this one has another thing that I've noticed. This is not common, but sometimes they do this. Cool. Why do they do that? It is not that common. It's not that common, but I still don't understand the point of it, to be honest. And this one has absolutely nothing. There are other examples. For example, Psy. There's actually a little bit written in it, but this has nothing. Psy's 7th album, but it's just so empty. You get twice the pages, but half the pictures. So continuing with these pocket kind of albums. Another kind is this one, SS51 Your Man, which is an album I absolutely love. However, this pocket thing right here, which I've seen in quite a few albums, it always leads to this lovely part right here being rather damaged, and you can see, because every time you need to open the album, you need to open this up, which will ultimately, it will just wear it down. And it is a big bummer. Also, this type of thing where it's like everything is just flat laid out, you get a lot of posters here that just fall out. I do not have these up. Problem is, if I were to put them up, then this one wouldn't be filled up and everything would be just pushed in together, which will ultimately damage the album in that sense as well. So as great as it is that they fill it up with stuff you can use for other things, if they don't make the cover hard enough to withstand any pressure, well, the result just makes the album being damaged even further. Another pocket kind of size is this one. And this is of course the LP long play size with the vinyl records. This, however, just has a normal CD. But I do understand where they got the whole design from, because it is beautiful. However, the problem with this is, first of all, that it's really thin, and so it easily gets worn out in the edges because the cardboard is so thin. The second thing is that it has these edges from where it's been glued. These edges create a problem when you put your contents back in, as it is easy to get stuck on these edges and so rip apart the contents, or just the contents getting stuck, and you will end up ripping apart the album instead, or the cover instead. However, it is a beautiful design. When we're talking about pockets, we also have the ones, we have this one, another oversized album in the LP size. It is also a normal CD in it. It is a really beautiful design. The problem with this one though is, first of all, the spine. The spine is really thin compared to both of these sides. Second of all, this one has like a really thick cardboard attached to it, which makes it really heavy. This one, on the other hand, has this lovely little pocket right here, which basically, if you open it up, the ends of the album will start tearing. The album has already started tearing, and it is so hard to hold right now. But it's only because I've opened it up and tried taking out the cards. It didn't take many times for that to happen, and it is such a bummer. And we have another pocket. This one, this type of pocket. Again, here they've tried to compensate by having a little lovely thing right here, but you still have to lift it up at the bottom edges, which will cause a bit of a wear to the pocket itself. Then we have another pocket, this one. And unlike the other that had cards, this one has a photo book. They've tried to do it well with this one, but you can't really pull out something like that. So you have to lift it up. And then this happens. Yeah, this is most likely due to the fact that it's rather poorly glued. They probably didn't use a very good glue. Second of all, because you have to lift it up a bit. There is no way you can pull it out with doing it like this. The glue will start to come off either way, because you can't pull out the photo book without having to lift up this part a bit. These pockets are not something I recommend, in short. We briefly touched upon the subject of cards. I want to go into that a little bit more in detail. And for that I have GD's One of a Kind. Cards is an alternative to photo books. In this case, it's not always that easy to contain the cards. We saw the two examples of Bestie's album as well as Super Junior's Mr. Simple album. That the way those were done with the little pocket might actually end up damaging the album. Here we have another alternative, which is, as you can see, first we have a little frame right here. which is not always used. Sometimes they're just put right into it, most of the time. The problem with these kinds of cards is that it's not that easy to flip through like you do with a photo book. One of the positive things is that there is no spine to break, and they do contain in good condition. However, it is a bit of a struggle sometimes to get all the cards out and to look at them, then put everything back. It's much easier to just take out a album with a normal spine and just flip through it and then put it back. So I do sometimes understand the concept of cards, but they do need to be stored correctly, and you do need to put in a little bit more time if you want to look through cards compared to if you want to look through a photo album. Talking about spines, yes, I want to go a little bit more into depth in that area, and for that, first of all, I have to start Shake It, which is again a bit of a bigger album with the whole vinyl size, the LP size. This one, however, has something I am not particularly fond of. They have stapled the photo book, which is probably my least favorite binding of all, because of the simple fact that you can see it right here. It will start to break off quite easily, especially now there's only 2 staples and it is a big photo book. They did something really weird when they glued this one there. It's rare to see a photo book this bubbly. They just didn't use enough glue. I don't understand why it's... Because I've seen other people unbox this. Why is it so bubbly? It's a bubble. There is also the other option, if you don't want a staple but still want to use metal, to use a spiral. This, for example, is a spiral. I feel like these are something in between cards and a photo book, because of the simple fact that they are so thick. You can actually take them out. So it's a spiral, but with cards shaped like a photo book. But as I always say with metal, as I said in the previous part, metal rusts, and I never recommend metal. But if you want to go with metal, do use a spiral instead of a stapling, because this will last a lot longer. And the good thing about this is that you can open it fully. You can see every page clearly. This is one of the awesome things about the spiraling spine, that you can actually see them to the fullest. And it's not that hard to flip through. These are quite thick pages, so it does take some time. But again, if you want to use metal, at least use this. Then we have another option, which is not use anything at all to bind. This thing right here. BP's Take 4, I believe all of their takes for the books are like this, where there is nothing to bind it together. It's just pages put together. One of the good things about this is that no spine can tear. The bad thing about it is that it's just a lot of pages. They can easily fall apart because they are apart from the beginning. I have this plastic around it. I have this plastic around it, which hinders it all from falling, but it's not the best plastic. At the same time, with this kind of non-binding, you can open the pages fully, but it's not like you can hold it up and sit with it, because then a lot of pages might fall out, and it is a bit more complicated to flip through. But at the same time, it will not break apart. You might just have to gather up everything if you drop some of the pages. Might be a puzzle in the end. So in a way it's a good thing, and in a way it's a bad thing. It's just really what you're looking for. We also have this, which is a little bit better alternative, where there is no binding. But we have this lovely thing right here, which holds it all together. So nothing falls out, and there is no spine to break. There is, however, one thing I really don't like about this. this one. They have used a metal clamp to hold this lovely thing together, which has actually left quite a lot of marks on my album. Wherever this is, a mark will be left. However, other than that, it is a really smart way to bind a book together. I mean, there is no spine to fall apart. But why this? Why? Oh, I also have another example of the whole non-binding thing, and it is this one. The no spine at all. Not so fond of this one due to the fact that this part and this part is really hard. The pages are really thin, so if you were to drop one in, let's say, like this, it is so easy for the pages to tear, which is a bummer because they're, you know, gorgeous. But ooh, it is also rather hard to flip through because these ones has to lay exactly like that. Otherwise you might end up bending or ripping the pages when you flip through them. It's always good to have a spine, really. Something to hold it together. Then I thought I would address this whole, should we have the, like we talked about here, the photo book glued to the album itself, or should it just, you know, sit free? For example, this one. Yeah. This has the loose photo book. And in a way it's so much easier to go through this photo book than it is for something that is glued to it. It has both ups and downs. I believe the whole thing about, ooh, there's a photo book falling out of the album might not be so good. But if you just want to look at the photo book, you can just take it out and flip through it. It's much easier than having to hold a full album. That would be much more heavy. I also want to, now that I am into this, address the spine. And first I want to address gluing. As you can see, this is glued. One thing about gluing is, first of all, it is by far the most common one. Out of all my albums, it is by far the most common way to bind a book. However, it can have both ups and downs. This kind of binding is called perfect or adhesive binding. Basically, you just glue the whole album together. This can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how well it's glued together. This, for example, is very well glued together. One bad thing about it is that sometimes you can't really open it fully because that will mean the album itself would break off. Another thing is, if it's really well glued, it will stick for a long time. However, if it is badly glued or if the glue itself is of bad quality, this will happen like it did with this album. I don't know if you can see right here, but when I open it you will be able to see the pages falling out because of the simple fact that, well, it's not glued properly. And this is hard to tell, of course. When you buy an album you don't know that, oh, this is glued poorly. It's hard to be an expert on that. You don't know if the glue they used, you can't see that from just looking here, if it's good or bad. Which is a big bummer, because sometimes you can get a real hit and sometimes you get a real miss, like with this one, that the pages are just falling out for no reason because it's not properly glued together. Another thing I've noticed that I hope is not getting more common is this thing, where they have done the sides really thick, but again left the spine so exposed that it can easily be ripped apart. You know, if you take it out like this and then, oh, all of a sudden it starts ripping here because this part is so thick compared to this part, and this is the part that is supposed to hold up the entire album, and if it's the thinnest part, then we have come to my favorite type of binding, which is the sewn binding, as it is the most long lasting. Now there are of course different types of sewing and some are better than others, but all in all, sewn binding is the best one to use. I'm guessing it's not that common as just a glued one due to the fact it's probably a bit more expensive. I'm not an expert in binding, but I did research a lot of this before this video so that I wouldn't make any false claims. One thing you should always look for if you want to sew an album is the spine. Now it's not always that easy to see. From here you just see, oh, well, it looks like it's sewn, but you can't really know. And for that you have to open it, and it's not always possible. You know, when you buy it in a bookstore, you just have plastic around it and you can't look at it. But from what I've come to learn, that often it has this little thing right here. Sometimes it doesn't, but in many cases it does. An alternative is always to look at unboxings, of course, to see it. But why I like the sewn binding the most? Okay, first of all, if we check if it's sewn, this one has sections. As you can see right here, we have. Can you see it? We have sewn parts right here. Where you can see the thread. That is always, of course, a good way to show. But if you can't open it, I suggest looking for this little piece of fabric, which usually shows if it's sewn or not. Another thing I really like about this packaging is the fact that it has this protective cover. We've done a rather splendid job with putting a random member inside of the protective cover, which protects the album itself. Now, of course, this can rip, but it does give a certain protection to the album, and you are, if this one gets too worn out, supposed to just throw this out, but I'm pretty sure you as well as me wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, that is why there is a protective cover. And also I love this fact that they have this little pocket right here for the CD, protects both back and front, and this one so that it doesn't leave a nasty mark, and this one in between so it doesn't leave a nasty mark on the back of the last page of the album. We have this other example that I showed you before with a little nub. I don't mind the nub at all, actually. I think it's much better than the plastic thing they're using. However, in this case, it does make the whole album go a little bit wobbly. As you can see, it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the album. But otherwise, I do think the knob is a good idea, it's just that it might leave a mark right here. If it comes loose, you can just glue it back together, unlike if you, for example, have a jewel case and the knob breaks, then, well, you gotta buy a new jewel case because you can't really repair it. So back to this one. Also with sewing, this kind of sewing, you can open the book fully without having any pages fall out. You can flip through it without any problems. You can easily take it out, put it back in without any problems. Everything is so easily accessible in this one. There is no digging through multiple cards to get to the album. You just have it right here. It's so simple. I really do love this type of packaging. Then of course there's always the ups and downs with sewing as well. This type of sewing, it can be a bit weaker right where it is sewn, but it is really strong at the edges, at the sides of the album. These pages are really, really strong. All in all, this is by far my favorite album packaging. And there are many albums that are sewn. Let me just show you another. Okay, I got 3, but whatever. This one, for example, Identify. This one, as you can see, doesn't have the fabric, so it's not always that it has. But looking through it, we have this lovely binding. You can open it fully, and there is this amazing binding. Oh, I love this type of packaging. You can open it fully, and there is no problem. Everything is just so perfect. Sometimes you can also see, this is one other thing you can look for. Oh, I don't know if you can see, but there is like different sections. You can always look for that. Oh, I hope you can see. There's like different sections divided. You can always look for that as well. But that is just one type of sewing. But from what I've come to realize from looking at my own albums, which has this type of sewing, is that this is by far the most common one. I've tried to find cross-stitching, but I'm actually not sure if any of my albums does have that. And for me to check that, I would have to rip off the spine, and I ain't gonna do that. The sewing is very common, more common than I thought it would be. Yeah, here we can see it. The stitching right here. Oh, I love it. This is also divided into sections, I believe. Yeah, it is. And here we have another one. Again, the little fabric right there. Then we open it up fully. Here we go, stitching yet again. So it's not that easy to always identify if there is stitching in it. But yeah, look at this spine. If you can't like take it out of the plastic, of course, in the store, you can always look at the spine if you are curious. So that was my favorite and least favorite K-pop albums. I don't know if this is like the one that got left behind the episode almost, because I didn't imagine doing 3 episodes. I thought I would do like 1, but then there were so many things I started rambling on about, and I discovered in myself that, oh gosh, there were so many things to consider while I was making the episodes. And now I've done 3 episodes. But this one, in conclusion, yeah. I know it's a very simple packaging, but I'm sure there is a reason why most books are bound like this. Because it lasts. If you want your books to last for a long time, why not your albums as well? Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this last episode as well. Alright, bye bye. Then we have other examples like this one, which I just want to show this because I think it's so innovative and cool. Because it's like this. It's like yeah, I just like it. You get half the pictures you should have had, or twice the page. Well, I hope you get me. So you'll have to lift it up. Then that happens. But we briefly here they put a little bit of a frame around it that you have to remove